been a busy day. Busy. I think we're going to get very busy as well, going on forwards. Yeah, so lots of work coming our way. So it's been good. It's been
Always
good
to hear. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's the weather like down in London? We've got a typical drizzly day up north.
Yeah, so it's a bit grey today, not drizzly, definitely colder than it has been. So yeah, so it's a not a bad day. Anyway, so how did your dog walk go this morning?
Muddy. Quite how muddy, but no, it's always good to get out. It's I'm lucky because I'm surrounded by hills, so it was just great to get a bit of fresh air. Even in the rain, it was. I still enjoy it. It's very, very rare I come back from a dog walk feeling worse. I always feel so much better. So it's always a really good way to start the day. Right. Try to do it as much as I can.
And it gets you in frame for your coaching sessions later on in the day. Then
absolutely, yeah, clears the mind. Totally clears the mind.
Good. Yeah. No, I do like to get outside. I do feel that fresh air, but I don't have an excuse of a dog to walk. I miss that. I don't have that thing which makes me getting outside. Yeah.
I must admit, it is loose. Mornings like this morning, it would have been much, if I hadn't got a dog, then I wouldn't have thought of going for a walk, but it does get you out. I must admit, it is really good.
Yeah.
It's useful for some things. Cleaning duvet covers, but yeah.
Redesigning duvet covers, Tracy.
Piece of modern art it looks like now. Yeah.
We're still waiting for viewers, I think. So yeah. No, I have two cats which manage to bring enough muddy paws into the house when it's wet.
Do they bring the presents?
They do bring me presents, yeah. They do indeed. But they're asleep at the moment just behind me. So we'll see whether they make a present.
They might make an appearance.
Yeah.
No, I remember that about Mike. We used to have two cats before we got the dog, and it was the presents outside the bedroom door in the morning were not always what you want.
But, no, it's when I've had the presents in my bed. That's
gosh. No, I can imagine that's not very pleasant.
Yeah. So they now get shut in the kitchen at night. That's their penance for it. So yeah. Okay, well, let's make a start, I think. So it's really nice to be here today, and Tracy and I would like to welcome everyone to this session. But before we begin answering your questions, I thought it would be useful for those of you new to FourthRev, just for us to introduce who we are. So just to give you a little bit of background, we started in 2019 and are a remote first company. We now have a global team. So we have people in Australia, UK, with our biggest team being in Cape Town, South Africa. And then we've also got people based in all sorts of other countries as well. So we're a digital first company, and we bring the sort of best universities and leading tech companies together to partner on delivering online student programs that enable students to sort of achieve career outcomes in the high growth digital economy. So the programs we develop and deliver give the student the ability to develop the skills with the rigor required to get a university certified qualification and practical skills that leading employers are looking for in the high growth digital roles. So for our first 2 years, we worked with leading tech companies and employee partners and universities in Australia, UK, US and Canada to create these programs. And this led us to launch our first career accelerator with LSE in data analytics last year. And then in the autumn of last year, we launched a career accelerator with King's in product management. And in the first half of this year, we'll also be launching more career accelerators with universities in user experience and digital marketing. So these career accelerators are sort of 6 months long and combine the academic rigor and the practical skills needed to achieve the career outcomes. And to help our learners achieve those career outcomes, each learner has a career coach that they work with. And this is where Tracy and I come into the picture. So I'll just introduce myself a bit. So I'm Claire, and I have a few hats at FourthRev. So I coach and work with the learners to reach their career outcomes. I have the pleasure of managing the career coaching team and also work with the other coaches on enhancing their career support that we're offering. I personally started my career in HR. I then made a sideways move to management development assessment. And then from that role, I became a coach and have really focused my coaching practice on career coaching, as I really sort of love sort of supporting and developing people in their careers, finding roles where they can really show their true potential. So I'm just going to hand over to Tracy so she can introduce herself, and then we'll get going answering some of your questions. So Tracy, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Claire. Yes, so my name's Tracy Shuff. I've been a career and executive coach for about 13 years now. And I was a career changer 13 years ago. Before that, I had a long career in recruitment. And one of the things that I really, really enjoy about my job is helping people find careers, tweaking their careers, changing their careers to really enjoy what they do as well as be successful. And I think that's really fed from the difference in me and my working style and my enjoyment of my work. When I changed to become a coach, I found something that I just absolutely love. And that is what drives me in my career coaching now, to help others enjoy their careers every bit as much as I do. So Claire, in terms of your recent experiences, what's a highlight for you that's happened with a coachee recently?
Yeah, I've had quite a few highlights. Some are very individual to the sort of coachee, seeing them grow in their confidence and sort of develop and starting sort of to reach out there. I mean, that's absolutely great. But I think one of my big highlights this year is from one of the sort of students that I was working with here at FourthRev, who we spent some time just getting her confidence and seeing herself as a data analytics. And then she did some excellent networking over Christmas time. And it's really great to see when networking really pays off. And so, from this conversation she had at a Christmas party, they then got in contact with her. She showed some of the coursework that she'd been doing on the career accelerator she's on. And then the next thing we know, we're talking about job offers, and she's just about to start her new job. So that's a real sort of highlight for me, and just shows the power of networking and just taking those opportunities to talk to people. What about you, Tracy? Have you got any highlights from this year?
And I'd like to reiterate what you say about networking. It's something I spend a lot of my time talking about, and I think it's maybe a word that we need to change the name, because I think when we talk about networking, a lot of people are sort of say, "Oh no, I'm not very good at that." But actually, it is just about engaging with people in the right way. But it is so important. It's so successful. And when I started out, I read a report that said, 75-80% of all jobs people they get through their networks. And I sort of believed it, but actually that's my lived experience now. The people I work with, I'd say 75-80% of the jobs come through that route. So I think the other thing that I thought was interesting what you said is it's the great moments, and I'll talk a minute about, highlight for me, but it's also those mini moments of at the end of each coaching session where somebody, you can see they have grown in confidence, or they have got that clarity of what they're doing. And that's why I love what I do, because almost every single time something is achieved in the coaching session. But I think for me, I had a couple of weeks ago a lady that I was working with, a total career changer, from a senior teaching position to wants to get a data analytics role. Thought that it wasn't going to happen. She had a bit of a wobble. We talked it through, and so we had a really good session, reminding of the reasons why she loves it, the transferable skills that she'd got. And then a few days later, well, about a week later, very quickly, I got an email to say she'd secured a role, unbelievable, bigger salary than the one she was on now. And it was down to her, and it was networking again. So that felt really great, because she went from, I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing, to I've got this brilliant opportunity in a very short, I mean, she did the hard work, but it was just fantastic to hear. So that's kept me going for a couple of weeks, that one.
And it can be that little short moment, can't it? Like someone can be really down. I mean, it doesn't take much to turn that whole situation around.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's reminding them of what they can do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so let's sort of start answering some questions because I can chat to you all day, Tracy. So so we've got a question in about what advice would you have for someone who's coming back from a sabbatical 3 months and hasn't quite got a clue what to do next? Okay. Well, first of all, I'd say a sabbatical of 3 months isn't very much time in the grand scheme of the career. So I wouldn't be worried about having the 3 months off at all. I think, and I think it's actually really good to have those periods when you can take some time off. So I think some advice, I guess I would want to go into a bit more detail about this quite not got a clue what to do next, I think. And start sort of talking and thinking a bit more about that. So whether you're looking to, find a job carrying on doing what you're doing before your sabbatical, or whether you're sort of wanting to start making a change. And if you're sort of looking to make a change, then I think it's a bit about sort of planning out what that change is, what the steps are that you need to be taking. Definitely, as Trace and I were just talking about now, is talking to people in those areas that you're wanting to make a change. But if you're looking to sort of move on into something, carrying on doing what you were doing before, then of course it's really about sort of making sure that you've really sort of have reviewed your CV against the sort of job roles, really sort of thinking about how to market yourself, sort of really using LinkedIn. I know Tracy's a very big advocate for LinkedIn and may have some comments there to share, but really sort of starting to get back in contact with people, because you'll be amazed at how people will react to getting in contact. But Tracy, do you want to add some more to that question?
Yeah, I mean, certainly what you say about a 3 month sabbatical is not a big deal. It's seen as a positive thing. You'll have had time to reflect and recharge. It's a common thing I get actually with people saying, "Oh, I'm thinking of taking 12 months off, but I'm worried about the gap." But as long as you can explain it away in a positive way, you chose to do this reasons. You did this and learned this. But now you're ready to come back on the market, and then you're talking about yourself and your future career rather than what you've done. So absolutely explainable away. In fact, it's a positive thing. I think the other thing is, as Claire said, it's about having clarity in what you want to do next. So that's looking into yourself first. And I think this often surprises people in early career coaching conversations, is we often start with what drives you, what are your values, as well as what are your strengths, what are your transferable skills if you want to change what you're doing. So it's very much about looking at yourself first, so understanding yourself, what you can do, what you want to present to the market, but also how you would like to apply that. And that could be doing the same thing, or it could be doing something completely different. So allow yourself a bit of time to reflect on yourself, do some self-reflection exercises, ask other people, what do they think you're good at? Think about when you really, really enjoyed your job. What are the common moments of those times when you enjoyed your role? And therefore, what things do you want to get out of the next phase of your career? And sometimes in this self-reflection, you might come all the way around full circle and say, do you know what? I actually want to carry on doing what I was doing before. But that thinking will have been worthwhile, because one, you'll be going into the market positively. You'll know that you really want to do this, and that will come across in your interviews and your applications. But also you'll know why you're good at it, because you'll have explored your strengths. So you'll be much, much better at marketing yourself. So I think it's that stand back, reflect, open your mind to all sorts of possibilities as well, and then try and funnel down with what you've learned about yourself, what you've learned about what's out there, to then make the decision of what to do next.
Okay. All right. So we've got a very related question as well, Tracy, here, but does it matter to employees if you have a gap in your CV, and how do you talk about that in an interview? I would say, from all my experience of talking to employees, it doesn't matter, and as Tracy's just said on link with the earlier question, it's about really talking about what you've done in that time. But do you agree with that, Tracy?
Yeah, it's having a story, and by a story I don't mean a something made up. I mean just you being able to articulate, why there was that gap, but don't dwell on it. It actually doesn't matter. With putting my old recruitment hat on, I didn't really mind that people took a gap, but I wanted to know why, just to make sure that, there was nothing underlying that I don't know what I thought was would be underlying, but it is. Recruiters will ask you about the gap, so you do need to be prepared. But if somebody was very positive about the reasons why, and then quickly moved on to why they're then interested in my role, then I'd forgotten it. It was irrelevant. So it's just getting that story right, your motivation, why you did it, and then what you're looking to do next. Quickly turn it into the positive.
Yeah. And I find sometimes I talk to people a bit about having a golden thread through their career. And even if that's not been a purposeful sort of steps that they've taken, but you can match this path that you've taken in your career. And sometimes those gaps can really fill into that sort of path and why you've done things, and how it helps you get on to the next thing. So I think it's own it, I guess, would be what my big advice is. Own it, and don't be worried about it.
Don't be ashamed about it. It's what you want to do, it's what you did. Now you're moving on to what you want to do next. So absolutely. I'm just noticing there's some LinkedIn questions, Claire, so I'm itching to get involved with those questions.
Okay, you go, Tracy.
So LinkedIn, thoughts on the importance of continuing education and professional development. I think this is a broader thing than LinkedIn. I think absolutely, if you have things to talk about on your LinkedIn profile, self-development is a really positive thing for the market to be aware of. That you do. So I think it's really important to highlight anything on your LinkedIn profile and your CV as well. And I think it's important not to sort of. I think sometimes people tell me all sorts of courses that they've been on in their LinkedIn profile and on their CVs, and I really not bothered about the fact that 10 years ago you did a minor health and safety course, but I am bothered that you've taken some steps to do a leadership development course, or you've increased your knowledge of Python by doing a course. So it's things that are relevant to the roles that you're applying for. So the absence of continuing education, professional development doesn't necessarily exclude you, but by adding it, you are putting yourself higher up the list. So definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and I totally agree with it, making it really relevant to what you're wanting to do, is really key. And then also, I think sometimes it's about how you've used that learning as well, and how that's helped you in sort of future roles. So yeah, definitely see that. Okay. So we've got, so we've got a nice question here is, can you give me an example of someone successful in reaching their goals with your help? Well, I think we've got lots of those sort of examples, Tracy. Do you want to start off with one, and then I can give another one, maybe?
Examples. I think one that sticks out for me is a lady that I worked with that had was in an executive position, but she felt that she really didn't have a voice on the board that she was on. So we sort of started coaching together for that reason. But she is an incredible person, and slowly over time she's gained her confidence, and is now secured a chair position and is in the middle of applying for chief executive roles. So she went from being quiet and unconfident to still quietish, but very confident in her abilities. So she's a particular, I shouldn't have favourites, but she's a particular favourite of mine. How about you, Claire?
Yeah, so I mean, again, there's just so many, but I guess your examples triggered another one in me with someone I was working with who was probably sort of fairly senior, but working in an industry she really just didn't enjoy doing a role that she did enjoy, but she just the whole environment of where she worked. And so when I started working there, she was quite despondent, quite fed up with life, and quite negative about thinking whether she would get anything else, and that she was stuck in this industry forever. And so, you know, sort of really sort of unpicking that, and then really sort of driving in, going back to what you were talking about, what her values were, what her drivers were, what would be a good fit for her. And so she went from a sort of investment bank into a role in the sort of civil service. So it was a really rapid, really vast difference in sort of culture. And you know, it took a lot of work for her to be able to translate her experience from the investment banking into the sort of IT project management roles in the civil service. But she's now 4 years in and is just thriving, has just had a promotion, and is just seeing that being in an environment where you can really ties into your values and what you really want to do. That's how much difference it makes to as a person. Definitely.
It is really satisfying, not just about getting, you know, when helping people get the next job, but it's also seeing them flourish in their careers because they're now confident and equipped to be able to do that.
Yeah.
There's a question here with somebody that is struggling to find work. Not enjoying perhaps the roles that they've done to date, wanting to find something quite quickly, and feeling, you know, low about this. So in terms of your next roles, for me, I think there's a decision to be made in terms of timescale in, are you going to go for something that you really want because you've not enjoyed things to date? It's doing that standing back that we've talked about, working at what you really, really want to do, and getting the clarity of message in your CV, on your LinkedIn profile of that. But it's equally saying, okay, I need to get a job quickly. So what am I prepared to compromise on? And that's a tough decision, I think. If you've had roles that you've not enjoyed, do you want to step into something that is going to be another one of those? Or do you want to hold out to get the thing that you really want? And I know that probably seems quite daunting at the moment, but there's an awful lot that you can do as an individual. And when we talk about career coaching, one of the things when we first working with people, career coaching is not something that's done to you. The work is done by the learners, the clients that we work with. It's not done by us. So you can take control of what's happening. So the first thing is be clear in your message of what you are. So where your strengths are, what you're looking for. When you phone a recruiter, you need that 20-30-second elevator pitch to attract their attention. Your LinkedIn profile should say exactly what it is you are. Be specific. That headline should be full of those key words for the sort, exactly the job that you are looking for. So it's that clarity of message that's really, really important. What I find, I think, St. Clair, it's people when they start out, they try to keep their options open and keep wanting to, well, you know, I can do this, I can do that, I can do the other. But actually, by keeping options open, you can end up with a really, really weak message to market. And, you know, with my recruiter hat on, you're easily overlooked because you're not jumping out at me. You know, I've got loads of LinkedIn profiles to search through. I've got loads of CVs to read. It's the ones that jump out at me, the ones that have got that really clear, concise, focused message. So it sounds a bit counterproductive to say, narrow down what you are, but actually, you know, in my experience, that really, really works to help the market notice you. So first thing is work out what your message is, be very clear about it. Second thing is get out there, talk to people. We've already talked about networking, you know, there's never 10 minutes goes by without talking about networking, but it's reaching out to people you know. And that might sound a bit daunting, but it's not about reaching out and saying, can you help me find a job?
No.
It's engaging with them. I find what works really well, ask them a small favor or piece of advice that they can easily give. Because when someone's helped you, they then have a vested interest in seeing you succeed. So they don't go about their business thinking, oh, I've spoken to Tracy, I must help her find a job. But their unconscious remembers my 20-30-second elevator pitch and the fact that I've helped you and be nice to see you succeed. So when I overhear, or they overhear something that's about coaching, then they'll think that's what Tracy's looking for. So the trick with networking is not to sell. It's dropping your elevator pitch, ask that small favor or piece of advice. And remember, it's about engaging. It's not selling. It's about engagement first, ask the favor and trusting in the process, because it works. It really does work. And this is where perhaps I spend my coaching is more about nudging people to do this, because there's a lot of reticence there. But so many people, hundreds and hundreds of examples of people that start off saying, I don't know many people, I'm not very good at this, who come back to me a few weeks later and go, Tracy, I've been really lucky. Somebody I know knew somebody who got this job and, I've landed it and it's fantastic. So, and that's not luck, that's networking well. So talk to anyone that will listen, go through all of your LinkedIn contacts, engage with them, ideally on the phone. Try not to just message people. If you've spoken to someone on the phone, you remember them for quite a long time. If you email them, message them on LinkedIn, you might remember them for a day or two and then it's gone. So much as you can, phone. I know that's not possible for everyone, but try that. And also increase your networks. Go onto LinkedIn, look at your second connections. I bet there's lots of your second connections, people that you haven't thought to link with, but they're connected to someone chances are you probably worked with them. So widen those networks. And just the last point, just to say that some recruiters, the good recruiters, are part of that network. The good ones who understand what you do, understand your sector, your functional area, they can be really, really good at marketing you. So, get to know the good recruiters. They can be hard to find, but they are out there.
So you got onto your passion of LinkedIn and networking there, Tracy. I would also reiterate what you were saying at the beginning, is also do take that bit of time just to sort of reflect before you go, to get that real clarity of message there. And I think I would reflect on what I have enjoyed about the roles and what I haven't enjoyed about the roles, see what patterns are coming out about that. And when you go into the networking conversations that Tracy's talked about, really think about what it is that you enjoy in work and what you want to be doing, getting those out in that elevator pitch. I would agree with all of that, definitely. So let's see what else we have got here.
Just noting one more LinkedIn one, just to throw it out there while we're talking about LinkedIn. Social media can be noisy fluff. What kind of things are valuable to post or share on LinkedIn?
Very good question.
Yes, they absolutely can. I love that phrase, actually, noisy fluff. I might pinch that and use it. So you're absolutely right. LinkedIn, particularly the homepage, is full of irrelevant things. And I think with any social media, it's posting, sharing, commenting on things that increase your brand. Now, brand is a very grand word. We do talk a lot about branding, but it's understanding your personal brand. But that's really, your personal brand is what you want people to know you for, when you're not there and they're talking about you. So understand your personal brand and make sure that anything that you do post or share or comment on is enhancing your brand and not taking away from it. So, so that's the first thing. Second thing is LinkedIn and Twitter are great places to demonstrate that you're a subject matter expert. So they can be really useful. And one of the things I'd suggest is that rather than putting a post on the homepage, you put an article on your, so it's the same place as you'll find posts on the homepage, but if you do article rather than post, that posts it out to your network. So again, you should be building up your LinkedIn networks, your connections, but it also anchors it on your LinkedIn page as well, your profile page. So it's there for everyone to see. And when recruiters look at your LinkedIn profile, they do look at what you've been commenting on, what you've been posting, because it all adds to your credibility, or if it's the wrong things, take away. So I think my advice is don't be put off by the fluff, because it doesn't have to be that way. And people that are truly, experts in what they're saying come across very well on LinkedIn, and also I suggest Twitter, although I have a bit of a thing about Twitter, but yeah, it can be a great way of showing you subject matter expertise. I won't say any more.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think when you are posting on any social media, it really is about how's this adding to my reputation as an expert in this area, and that brand piece, and then thinking about that clarity of message and not diluting it by posting lots of irrelevant things.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely. Yeah, it's not Facebook. Yeah. It's professional social media. It needs to be. I think your style needs to be more conversational than, say, your CV, because it is social media, but it's professional social media. Somebody once said to me, actually, that when you're thinking about social media, don't post anything that you wouldn't be happy to see on a billboard outside your house, which I thought was a really good way of making you stop and think whether, okay, if that was public and seen outside my house, would I be comfortable with that? So
yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, it's a good way to give you that quick sense check, isn't it? Like, exactly, should I be posting this?
Yeah, before you launch, you go, hang on a sec.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like, does this, don't post anything which goes against what I'm saying in my CV as well, I guess.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we've got a question from someone who's at the early stages of their career. So they finished a qualification in product management last year, but they're not sure how to start out in a role if they've never had a job before, and how to find which roles are entry level across many various industries. So I think people starting their career, this is always a challenge, is like getting that first role, that first job, and like that feeling of I don't quite have what I need. I think that's a really sort of common challenge. We always have these little voices in our back of our head which sort of hold us back. I would first off really start looking at those sort of product management roles, really sort of thinking about what are those common skills that I see coming through in the different job roles. And you don't just start looking at entry level, you can look at sort of roles which maybe require a bit more experience as well. Then you can really sort of start taking a step back to think, okay, well, how can I show I've got those skills? So you'll be able to show some of those skills from the qualification that you did in product management. So that will help you maybe with things like sort of stakeholder mapping, or other areas of sort of launching products and that side, and customer journeys. You'd have covered some of those topics in the course. And so you can then sort of think about how I can show that on my CV and that experience. You can also think about how to use a portfolio to help demonstrate those skills and experiences that you've got from that qualification that you've done. I think portfolios are really powerful for people who are at entry level of their career, and also sort of people who are looking to make a career change as well. I think portfolios has really helped solidify, what you've learned. But I would also take a step back and just think about, what other skills have I got? So I know that you said that you've not had a job before, but you may have done sort of voluntary work, you may have done extracurricular stuff at school, or if you went to university, at university. And I think there's all sorts of skills that you can pull out of this. And so, by understanding what people are looking for in those job roles, you can then see what those patterns are of those skills, and then you can start thinking about, well, when have I shown teamwork, or when have I shown sort of leadership, or when have I solved a problem, or when have I managed different priorities. And then you can start thinking about how you can start putting that in your CV. So between the sort of qualification in product management, your skills, your portfolio, you can now start really sort of showing yourself as a credible candidate. Finding roles at entry level across various industries is another thing. Again, I think LinkedIn can be really helpful here. Using the sort of search functions in LinkedIn can be really powerful, and filtering that down to the different industries that you're interested in. Again, not to be very repetitive, I would try and narrow down that list as well. And so going back to the reflection exercises that Tracy was talking about, really doing a bit of reflection about, where are my interests? What sort of companies and cultures am I interested in? What does that mean for maybe the industries that I'm wanting to develop my career in? And narrow it down a bit there as well. And, depending, again, I don't quite know what level you are, but at the graduate, there are several graduate schemes with people looking for product management as well. So, I mean, that would be an obvious place to go to. Trace, I don't know if you've got any more tips there.
I mean, you've covered most things there. I think the looking at what skills you've already got. So I think you might be, a recent graduate, you might be a career changer. Either way, probably the commonest thing I see is people underestimating the skills that they've already developed. So if you're a recent graduate, think about the projects that you did. What was your part in those projects? Did you drive it? Were you one that came up with interesting ideas? Did you provide the glue that kept everyone together because you're really personable? So, explore the transferable skills that you've already got and make the most of those. And obviously, if you've had some work experience, then definitely there will be lots of transferable skills, because a career in product management, okay, there's the sort of technical stuff, but then there's so many soft skills that you need in terms of stakeholder management, relationship building, asking the right questions, as well as planning, project management. And there's an awful lot that comes into product management. So it's about understanding the strengths that you already bring, plus what you've done in the qualification. And don't underestimate what you do in the qualification. That's the other thing. A lot of people think, well, I've just done this, but what were the practical aspects of that? And as Claire said, portfolios work really, really well. Absolutely make the most of what you've done on the course and present it. That was stuff you did that was assessed. So present it. This is not to be hidden. It's stuff to put at the front of your CV, because it's the most recent knowledge you've got about product management. So it's making the most of what you've got. I think also the other thing that I used to look for as a recruiter is what makes you different. I think people often, absolutely need to refer back to the job description and show how you meet the job description. But if you've come through a slightly different route, rather than sort of hide that or be embarrassed by it, make the most of it, because what you're doing is you're bringing a different perspective into that job that the person that's come maybe through a traditional route wouldn't have. So, really embrace the differences rather than shy away from them. That's what makes you you, and that's what makes you a valuable candidate.
Yeah, I would just say, just adding to that, because we've got a few more questions to answer, but when you look at your CV, often the technique I do with people who are struggling to pull out those transferable skills is often in the CV, we will put that achievement. So, it could be, I delivered this project. And, someone reading that CV will not know everything that went into getting to that endpoint. So sometimes it can be really powerful just to go back through and think, okay, well, what did I have to do to reach that endpoint? What skills was I using? Who else did I involve? And that can really start helping, I think, pulling out some of those sort of transferable skills for you as well. But yeah, okay. Have you got any more questions here you want to pick, Tracy?
One here from Kate. And what's the best way to position a desire for a career pivot in your CV, personal statement, or networking conversation? One of the things that I suggest to people when they are changing their career is to inhabit the new space, own who they want to be, rather than keep staying back in who they were. So, LinkedIn profile, CV, if you want to be a product manager or a data analyst, that's what you are now, particularly if you've done the qualification, but it's about thinking of yourself as that new role, not because if you don't think it, nobody else is going to. And
couldn't agree.
And you'll have looked at all the transferable skills that you've got as well as so you have got the ability to do the role. So it really is being clear, again, you keep using that word, but confident, I think, is the word now, in you as this new version of you that you want to be. It's understanding the reasons why. So it's very appealing to a recruiter, to a hiring manager, for you to be really, really enthusiastic. That's the great thing about career changes, is they've chosen, it's not something they've fallen into, they've chosen this is what they want to be, they've thought about this, they've done training in this. So it's that enthusiasm, that interest in the role is very infectious. So if you can get that through in your CV, CV is full of personality, so try and get that enthusiasm into your CV, definitely on your LinkedIn profile and in your elevator pitch as well, which is in networking conversations and conversation with recruiters. You should have a 20-30 second elevator pitch, and in that pack in the fact that get that enthusiasm in your voice and in what you how you talk about yourself. So I think it's owning it. It's being clear as to why you've got this passion, and again, understanding those transferable skills that you're bringing into the role.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about that enthusiasm and passion. I was talking to someone earlier today who has got onto something which he didn't. He's done really well getting onto, but he was told the reason he got it was because he was really passionate about the topic, whereas other people had more experience, weren't so passionate as he was. And as Tracy and I will say, that often in an interview, no matter what the process is, you'll draw it back to three key things. They want to know, can you do the job? But they want to know, more importantly, do you want to do the job, and can they see you doing it with them? And that passion, if you've got someone who's really engaged in what they're doing, you're going to really want them. And I think it's really interesting is that some companies are moving into what they call strengths interviews, where they're looking at how you come across when you talk about a topic. It's not just your experience, because they're really wanting to drive into that passion. So yeah, really like that.
Absolutely. I used to sit in interviews with my clients when I was a recruiter, and I've been in several situations where the candidate on paper 90% of the skills, but came across as 70% motivation, and then the next candidate 70% of the skills, client taking a bit of a punt to see them, but 90% the motivation. The latter candidate got it every single time. So that demonstrating enthusiasm for the role, but also for that organization, is absolutely key. Really, really makes a difference. And as I say, that's in interviews, but it's also, try and get it through in your LinkedIn profile, in your CV, and definitely in a covering letter. In the covering letter, it's about why you want that, why you can do the job, why you want the job, but also why them as an organization. Sorry,
and
off topic there.
no. Yeah, dangerous to get too close to talking to each other. But I think the other key point is, and I say it so many times to people making career changes, you've got to believe in yourself in this new role, and you've got to be talking about yourself, not be hesitant about it as well. And believe in all the steps you're taking to make this happen, especially the people who are doing our career accelerator to us. They're making a big investment in time, money, and they got to put themselves behind themselves, if that sort of makes sense to people.
Absolutely.
I've got a question here, which is something I really quite enjoy, is like, how can I go about mapping out the next few years of my career? And I love working with people who are sort of looking to do this. And I think for me, it's sort of really about spending that bit of time, again, not wanting to be boring, about that reflection, understanding yourself, and then really sort of thinking about, well, what is that job I want to do maybe in 3, in 5 years? Then you can use all the great tools like LinkedIn, researching people who are doing those jobs, you know, how they got there, what skills have they got, what abilities have they got. And then you can, I'm very much a believer in starting working backwards. So if I know that's where I want to go to, then I can start planning what moves do I want to take with my career over the next few years to put me in a position to reach that end position. And I think it's a really powerful way. And you don't need to do sort of 10 years out, but you can even just do the next job or the next but one job, but be thinking, having that longer term focus, I think is really useful. And the people I've worked with, or the people I know who've had that, have been really successful in their careers, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. If you know where you're going to, obviously it also means you make the right next step, you know, if you know that sort of 3 steps ahead. But I also understand it's quite a difficult thing to do. So it's not always, for me, it's not always, I think people think it's about identifying the job that they want in 5 years or 10 years time. And I also agree with Claire, 10 years is such a long way. 5 years is probably enough, unless you've got,
or 3.
You've got clear vision for your career plans. But it's understanding what, not necessarily job title, but what sort of things you think you'd like to be doing. So simple things, not simple, but it's things like, you've started maybe with, you manage one person, actually you would love to be able to manage a big team. Leadership is something you're really interested in. It could be about you know, you like working more closely with the business, so you know, choose things that allow you to work closer with the business if you're currently in a technical role. So it's generalities about direction of travel, rather than trying to sit there and go, right, this is the job title I want. Just on that, actually, in interviews, I often say, you know, people say, what do I ask about the question, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And I think the answer isn't always, I want your job, if that's a bit of a trite answer. It isn't always about climbing ladders and taking steps. It's about you understanding what you love about the role and what you want to do more of and what direction you'd like to go in. But it's also equally, if some people have reached a stage in their career, they just love what they're doing. I love what I'm doing. So, you know, my 5 years time will probably look pretty similar to now. But, you know, it's that's not a problem for, you know, don't be afraid to say that at interview. I see I've gone off topic again. So, get me back into the thing. So it's next few years, that was it. So think about generalities. What the other thing Claire said about LinkedIn, funny I mentioned that again. I also encourage people, it's not so much the path people have taken, but to find people that they think, actually, I'd love to be like them. It may be not necessarily a job title, but people that you admire. And think about what it is about what they do that you would love to be in that situation. So that can help if you find it difficult to see into the future, and lots of people do. But you know, if you see people doing something, you think that's where I'd love to be, that can help. Visualization, you know, imagine yourself in 5 years' time. You know, where are you living? What are you doing? Not necessarily in job, but you know, your general life, and where does your job fit into that? You know, if you're living in a nice big house, then you need to think about money's probably a big driver of yours. If you're, you know, a big part of the community, then you know that's different values that you've got. So it's just imagining yourself in those idle moments of visualizing yourself in 5 years' time. But it is tricky. It's a technique that does take a bit of time to get used to, but it is great if you can do it, because as Claire said as well, people that have got an eye on where they want to get to, you know, the steps are then much easier. The path is clearer. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I think all of this, I mean, it can be difficult, but all of this becomes so much easier if you've done that self-reflection. And as we started off at the beginning, really looking in yourself, then it starts making it much easier to think about what you're looking out for. There's a question about, what are your techniques for pushing people out of their comfort zones? I'm a fairly sort of gentle, steady steps. I don't believe in pushing someone so far that they're going to fail. It's about sort of pushing those boundaries. Also, I mean, one of the things that we do here at FourthRev is really helping people understand what their sort of self-limiting beliefs are, or introjected values are that are holding them back. And then, you know, once you can understand what's holding you back, then you can start thinking about, how can I overcome these barriers? And then, you know, and then the other side of that is, how can I start pushing myself beyond what I'm really comfortable to do? And it's also understanding, what you'll get out of like doing that. There's got to be a good enough payoff to make someone wanting to push themselves out of their comfort zones. So again, that comes into a bit about the future as well, and where that will take you. But yes, for me, it's about really being sort of focused on why you're doing it and taking those steady steps to making the progress to get to where you want to, and understanding what's stopping someone from doing it as well. And sometimes that's where, as coaches, we can start being a bit challenging. So we can have those conversations where someone leaves one meeting and says, yes, I'm going to do that for the next meeting. They come back at the next meeting and like they have every excuse under the sun about why they haven't done what they said they were going to do. And so that's when, as a coach, you might start challenging them and really start trying to understand what is holding them back and push them a bit more to take some steps.
Yeah, that word challenging, I think, is a really important one. I think it's a word that's often used to describe my coaching style, but usually in a positive, well, always in a positive way. But it's partly because I've done this quite a long time now. I've seen the difference it can make if you encourage people out of their comfort zones. And as a coach, it is encouraging, not forcing. But I can see how much they blossom, how much they achieve what they want to do. So, if I see someone with their comfort blanket around them, I will help them peel that comfort blanket off and encourage them to take that leap forward. Because, as I say, I've seen the results. Also, read the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's about sometimes just biting the bullet and doing it. And as Claire said, know the reasons why you want to do it and the benefits of it, and understand your self-limiting beliefs. But it's about just do it and see and think of, as we get older, I can say this because I'm older, it's the things that we don't do that we regret, that eat away at us, not the things we tried that maybe didn't work out. So, it's that's my piece of advice would be, don't regret it in later life, try it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's what the worst can happen is a really sort of good thing to just sort of challenge yourself on sometimes when we're holding ourselves back. We've got a couple of questions here. So we've got someone who's saying they're feeling a little lost in what jobs would be most suitable for their skill set and they're a qualified coach and a teacher. They love both of these professions, but they don't meet their needs. Any good areas to look at first? So I think this is a real sort of interesting one. For me, it's particularly interesting that they love their profession, they love coaching, they love teaching, but it's not meeting their needs. So that's quite a tough position to be in. I will sort of recognise that when you're doing something that you absolutely love, Ed, but it's not quite doing what you need it to do. So I mean, Tracy, I don't know if you can think of any good areas to look. I would really sort of be drilling down about what it is that I love about the coaching and love about the teaching as my first step there. And then thinking about what sort of roles does that move me to. But if you've got sort of more specific ideas, Tracy.
I think you talk about income and flexibility. So it's understanding the balance of those two. So it may be if you love something and it's flexible, then my challenge would be, what income sacrifice would you make because you've got a role that you love and you've got the flexibility that you need? So that's back to what's driving you, what your values, to say, what is the most important thing to me? I think the other thing is to talk to people who are coaches and who are teachers. Look at on LinkedIn, I should mention that, but it's explore the sorts of avenues that teachers and coaches have taken, because as a coach there's lots of different ways, and I've worked in lots of different ways. So I've got my own business, get direct work in, I do associate work for organizations. I've worked part-time for a company that employs coaches. So it's not just one path. So as a coach and also as a teacher, there's tutorial work that you could do that's relatively lucrative. I'm sure you know about supply teaching, etc. But it's just talk to lots of people, investigate what they're doing, how how they're making it work for them. Once you've understood where your parameters are, so what's the minimum income that you need, but also more importantly, what you feel valued. I always say to people, that's the lowest figure should be, what's the minimum where I feel valued, and what are you prepared to sacrifice to get the flexibility. If that's the minimum, you might be earning a little less, or actually, no, I want to earn more than that, in which case I'll sacrifice flexibility or do a job perhaps I don't enjoy quite as much. But there's tons of things you can explore in the training area. But it's invested research and talking to lots of people. Approach people on LinkedIn. It's amazing how helpful people are. Strangers, people do it for me. They contact me and say, I'm interested in getting into coaching. Can you help? And I'm more than happy to have a call with them for half an hour just to explore things. So reach out, talk to different people, explore the different options, as well as understand what your parameters are.
Yeah, and understand the bits that you really want to carry on as well.
As Claire said, what is it that you enjoy about those two roles, and can you get it from somewhere else?
Yes, yeah. And if those two roles aren't going to reach your income and give you the flexibility you want, which bits would you want? What do you want to be looking for in a new role or a new direction as well? Because you know what you're passionate about and what you love. So it's what can I carry on into other roles? We've got one question, but we've only got 3 minutes left, Tracy. On any advice for jumping out of traditional career paths that's secure into a freelancer role? It's terrifying, especially the unknown, but also exciting.
Yeah, having been
Tracy and I both done that.
Yeah, I'm a freelancer. Also, I worked in the interim management marketplace for a long time. It's understanding your attitude to risk and to uncertainty. Freelancing interim, it's an uncertain revenue stream. So if you are going to worry about the gaps between jobs, between work coming in, you're probably not going to enjoy it. If you are sensible and can, unlike me, store money away when the times are good, then you can find that the gaps become easier to deal with. In fact, they're great because you can do all those things that you don't get time to do when you're on a role, in a freelance role or interim role. So understand your motivation for what to do it. It's great for autonomy. It's great for being listened to. It's great for being in control of what you do. But there is this uncertainty that's there. And it's a bit like the feel the fear and do it anyway. How much would you regret not doing it if when you finally retire, you haven't done it? Would you regret that? Does it mean a lot to you? In which case, give it a go.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. And I think the trap I see people falling into that is often the other way, is that they think I've got to take everything, and then they never get that balance that often's what's driving it. So it's also remind yourself of while you're doing it. And I've also worked with lots of sort of people jumping into the freelancer role who've done maybe a bit of freelance, so they've gone back into a traditional role. It's not always an either or. It doesn't have to be I'm never going to do anything else now either. So anyway, I think that's our end of the time. It's been a real sort of pleasure answering those questions and talking to Tracy about some of those answers. And so thank you very much. And looking forward to maybe people joining us at another one of these sessions.
Yep, just a quick top tip. Understand yourself and your motivation and your strengths. Get that clarity of what you want to do next, and network.
And use LinkedIn, Tracy. You've got to add that one in as your top tip.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the questions.
We can drop off now, Tracy. All right.
know whether I should have been saying
Bye.
something. Bye.
Bye.